At the local police department, Morgan works the night shift as a janitor, raising 3 children on her own. While organizing files one evening, she accidentally knocks over a box of case documents. As she picks up the scattered photos from a recent murder investigation, her keen eye spots something the detectives missed. One of their suspects isn't a perpetrator at all, but another victim. The following morning, Detective Eck arrives for the daily briefing and immediately notices changes to the investigation board. "Who modified this?" he demands, but his fellow officers are equally puzzled. Frustrated, he orders a review of security footage, which reveals Morgan making the alterations. They promptly summon her for questioning. "This is Detective O'Dale speaking. We need you to come to the station immediately." The lieutenant wants to understand why she reclassified a suspect as a victim. Morgan provides a detailed analysis based solely on the case photographs. She explains that while a man was murdered and his wife disappeared, making her the obvious suspect, the evidence tells a different story. Morgan points to subtle details in the photos indicating another person was present during the murder, suggesting this unknown individual kidnapped the wife to divert suspicion. During their discussion, an officer bursts in with news. They've discovered surveillance footage showing an unidentified person entering the victim's residence on the day of the murder. Despite this corroborating evidence, Detective Eck has Morgan arrested for interfering with a police investigation. "I know the procedure," she says calmly. Meanwhile, the investigation continues, revealing that a woman named Ms. Jung visited the victim's house shortly before the murder occurred. What's her connection? Ms. Jung, formerly employed by the victim, is brought in for questioning. She maintains her innocence, stating, "I was home all day." Anyone can verify that. Later, as Morgan is released from custody, she overhears officers discussing Ms. Jung's surveillance footage. Studying the video footage briefly, Morgan notices inconsistencies and speaks up. The timestamp isn't right. Detective Eck dismisses her observation, but the lieutenant asks her to elaborate. Morgan explains that the wind direction shown in the footage is impossible for that time of year. In LA, autumn winds blow north to south. This footage shows a south wind. It must be from a different season entirely. Upon verification, the police confirm Morgan's suspicion. The surveillance video had been tampered with to implicate Ms. Jung. "She's absolutely correct," the lieutenant admits. Before Morgan departs, the lieutenant pulls her aside. During their conversation, Morgan reveals her 160 IQ and extensive knowledge from watching documentaries. "The clinical term is high-functioning intellectual," she explains modestly. Meanwhile, Detective Eck interviews the victim's daughter, who shares a crucial detail. Weeks before the murder, her mother Lynette received a mysterious letter from someone named Sarah. The contents of the letter had a devastating effect. After Sarah read it, she took her own life, leaving the mother deeply disturbed. Detective Eck's interest is immediately piqued by this development, and he discusses the letter with the lieutenant. They decide to search the missing woman's office, leading the lieutenant to request Morgan's assistance with the investigation. Detective Eck provides Morgan with a comprehensive case briefing before they proceed to interview the missing woman's sister. During their conversation, Morgan's keen intuition picks up on something. The sister's background as a biologist seems significant, and she's clearly withholding information. When Morgan voices her concerns to Detective Eck, he brushes off her observations. Later, Detective Eck attempts to obtain permission to search the missing woman's office for the letter, but his request is denied. Meanwhile, Morgan takes matters into her own hands, cleverly disguising herself as a nurse to gain access to the office and retrieve the letter. When she presents her findings to Detective Eck, he initially reprimands her for the theft, warning about potential legal consequences, but she persuades him to examine the letter's contents. The letter reveals a shocking connection. Sarah Atkinson had been working as a paralegal on the Brian Diamond case. The letter writer had suffered assault at the hands of Brian, a powerful figure, and was seeking the missing woman's legal assistance. This leads Morgan to theorize that Brian might be connected to the murder. Following this revelation, Detective Eck directs Morgan to return the letter while he arranges to question Brian. During interrogation, Brian maintains his innocence, and his alibi appears solid. Officers confirm his presence in Fontana City when the murder occurred, seemingly eliminating him as a suspect. As Brian's alibi in Fontana appears to clear him of suspicion, the office discovers Morgan's unauthorized acquisition of the letter. They file a formal complaint, prompting Detective Eck to remove Morgan from the case and instruct her to resume her regular duties. The next day, Detective Eck visits Morgan at home, curious about her theories. She explains her doubts about Brian's Fontana City alibi. It's a family-oriented destination that seems an unlikely choice for someone like Brian to visit alone. More importantly, she reveals a crucial detail. She spotted a toy bearing the Fontana logo at the sister's house, suggesting a concealed relationship between Brian and the sister. While Detective Eck acknowledges the logic in Morgan's deductions, he points out that both Brian and the sister have alibis for the murder date. As they drive back to the station, Morgan proposes a new theory. What if the murder occurred earlier than they thought, with the crime scene deliberately staged to appear more recent? Their examination of the crime scene leads to a breakthrough. They piece together the sequence of events. The missing woman had confronted Brian about the assault detailed in the letter, leading to a violent altercation. When her husband intervened with a gun, Brian turned it against him, resulting in his death. They then restrained the missing woman, and the sister, using her biological expertise, suggested freezing the house to manipulate the estimated time of death. The perpetrators also tampered with CCTV footage to create false leads. This revelation leads them directly to where Brian had hidden the missing woman, resulting in her successful rescue. Impressed by her exceptional detective work, the lieutenant extends Morgan a position as a police consultant. However, Morgan declines, expressing doubts about her suitability for detective work. "I don't think this is the right path for me," she says quietly. The following afternoon, Morgan takes her eldest daughter for a stroll in the park. She can't help but notice the sadness in her daughter's eyes, the same sadness that appears whenever thoughts turn to her father, missing now for 15 years. Despite her daughter's belief that he abandoned their family, Morgan gently insists, "Your father would never have left us willingly. Never." Seeing her daughter's continued disbelief, Morgan makes a decision. She heads to the police station and accepts their job offer, but with one crucial condition: they must help her locate her missing husband, Roman Sin Cara. "I need your help finding someone," she tells the lieutenant. "My husband, Roman Sin Cara. He disappeared 15 years ago, without a trace." As Morgan settles into her new role as a detective, expertly solving complex cases, she never loses sight of her personal mission. During a quiet moment, she approaches Lieutenant Celine about her husband's case. When asked for additional details that might help the investigation, Morgan shares the last memory she has of him, the night he left to buy diapers for their newborn baby. He never returned after that night, seemingly vanishing without a trace. Lieutenant Celine listens intently before promising, "I'll reopen the case and see what we can find." Later that evening, during dinner with her children, Morgan's son proudly announces that his sister received an A on her art project. Filled with maternal pride, Morgan leads her daughter toward the basement. "Come with me," she says softly. She reveals a collection of paintings featuring her missing husband, but her daughter's reaction is one of frustration and anger, still convinced of abandonment. Morgan tries to comfort her, promising that they'll uncover the truth about her father's disappearance. The next day brings unexpected news when Lieutenant Celine arrives at their doorstep with an update about the case. The lieutenant reveals that Roman's car had been discovered in a police impound lot just 3 days after his disappearance. Inside were the diapers he'd gone to purchase, concrete evidence that he had never intended to abandon his family. "This suggests something happened to him, Morgan," the lieutenant says gently. The revelation brings Morgan to tears, but she channels her emotions into her work, continuing to solve cases with renewed determination. A breakthrough comes when the lieutenant uncovers an intriguing lead and questions Detective Mellon. It emerges that Mellon had arrested Roman for creating a street mural shortly before his disappearance. "Your citation and report from that incident are barely readable," the lieutenant notes. Hoping to find answers, she convinces Mellon to take her to the mural's location. The mural still exists when they arrive, and the lieutenant sees potential significance in its location. That evening, she shares her findings with Morgan, showing photographs of the artwork and explaining the circumstances of Roman's detention. Given that the area was known for criminal activity, the the lieutenant theorizes that Roman might have witnessed something he shouldn't have, something that could explain his disappearance. Morgan immediately dismisses this theory. "He would have told me if he saw anything suspicious," she insists, though she provides the lieutenant with a collection of Roman's other murals to aid the investigation. As months pass, Morgan's exceptional work earns her a detective's badge. During the celebration of this achievement, she encounters a distraught woman in the restroom. Concerned, Morgan asks what's wrong and learns that the woman's 2 daughters have disappeared. Morgan promises to help find them. During questioning, the woman explains that her ex-husband, Wendell, is an extreme environmentalist who had always pushed for their family to abandon modern society and live off the grid. According to her statement, Wendell was obsessed with living off the grid, away from society. The investigation team quickly discovers that Wendell had recently submitted applications for children's passports, raising immediate red flags. With Wendell now their primary person of interest, Detective Eck and Morgan head to investigate his residence. The house appears deserted, but a greenhouse on the property catches Morgan's attention. Inside, her keen eye spots something peculiar: cucumbers and tomatoes growing side by side. As an experienced environmentalist, Wendell would have known these plants are incompatible companions. This observation leads Morgan to deduce that the greenhouse setup is recent, likely staged by someone with limited gardening knowledge. Detective X suggests the hastily arranged plants might be concealing something beneath. Their suspicions prove correct when they excavate the greenhouse floor, making a grim discovery: Wendell's lifeless body. The case takes a dark turn, revealing Wendell wasn't the kidnapper but a victim, and his children could be in even greater peril. The investigation broadens as witnesses come forward. A neighbor mentions frequently seeing Wendell with a bespectacled redhead, while another detective uncovers a photograph of an elderly couple in the victim's bedroom. Following these leads, Morgan and Detective Eck visit the children's mother, where they learn of her affluent background. Her father resides in an upscale mansion, complete with a chauffeur at his constant disposal. While Detective Eck conducts formal interviews, Morgan quietly builds rapport with a housekeeper who shares a crucial detail. Wendell had visited his father-in-law shortly before his death, specifically meeting in Mr. Ashford's private office. Reviewing the Child Protection Service's report, Morgan identifies a concerning discrepancy between the official assessment and the community's overwhelmingly positive view of Wendell. The stark contrast between Wendell's reputation as a caring father and the damning report raises suspicions. Their investigation identifies the report's author as Sarah, a red-headed social worker wearing glasses. When they visit her residence, Morgan's observant nature picks up on the stack of unpaid bills cluttering her table. Morgan notes the telling signs of financial struggle: generic household products and mounting bills. Yet incongruously, an exotic Hawaiian orchid adorns the room, suggesting a recent expensive vacation. The contrast between Sarah's apparent poverty and these luxury items leads Morgan to theorize that the father-in-law bought her cooperation in writing a falsified report against Wendell. Confronted with the evidence, Sarah breaks down and admits to accepting bribes from the father-in-law, revealing a widespread campaign to destroy Wendell's reputation. The team moves quickly to apprehend the father-in-law, their case strengthened when one of his drivers volunteers information about his suspicious absence on the day of Wendell's murder. In the interrogation room, Detective Eck presents his theory. The father-in-law had orchestrated Wendell's murder through a hired assassin, motivated by Wendell's knowledge of questionable business dealings. Despite initial denials, the pressure of mounting evidence proves too much for the father-in-law. Believing the hired killer may have also taken the children, the team launches an urgent operation to locate and apprehend the suspected hitman. The search yields no sign of the children. The investigation takes a dark turn as the detectives consider a new theory. Could the mother be involved in her ex-husband's death, given his plans to expose her father's corrupt business dealings? Morgan strongly objects to this theory, defending the mother's innocence, but her colleagues remain adamant about investigating her as a potential suspect. The case takes another twist when an officer reports that Mia Ashford, the children's mother, had withdrawn $100,000 right before the bank closed and subsequently disappeared. This revelation leads the team to theorize that she might have orchestrated both her ex-husband's murder and her children's disappearance to prevent them from revealing what they knew. The theory sparks a heated debate between Morgan and Detective Kerak later that evening. While watching a news report about the missing girls, Morgan's keen eye catches something peculiar. An antique visible in the background of the girl's photo that she distinctly remembers wasn't present during her house inspection. This detail strikes her as significant. Following this lead, Morgan researches Chinese antiquities online and tracks down an antique shop. There she encounters the missing girl's mother attempting to sell the artifact. When questioned, the mother breaks down and reveals the truth. The kidnapper had demanded ransom money, and she was desperately trying to raise the funds to save her daughters. Fearing for her daughter's safety, she had avoided involving the police. Morgan, understanding the mother's desperation, offers her support. They brief Detective Eck on the situation, who develops a plan to accompany the mother to the ransom exchange. Despite following the kidnapper's instructions, the exchange goes wrong. The perpetrator takes the money and flees without releasing the girls, leaving everyone in distress. Detective Eck then reveals his foresight. He had hidden a tracking device in the money bag. They follow the signal to the kidnapper's vehicle, only to find it ablaze, with no sign of the children. While examining the burnt wreckage, Morgan accidentally activates the car radio, which tunes to a betting channel. This triggers a crucial memory. During their visit to the father-in-law's mansion, she had noticed one of the drivers listening to similar betting broadcasts, his car strategically positioned to observe the mother's bedroom window. Morgan pieces together the truth. The driver, harboring an obsession with the mother, had planned the entire scheme. His motive was to acquire enough money to feel worthy of pursuing her. The investigation reveals he had murdered the children's father, concealing the body in the greenhouse, before abducting the girls. Under questioning, he confesses to hiding the children in a mountain location, though they had managed to flee. The search party finds a trail of clever markers left by the girls, who had used survival skills taught by their environmentalist father. These breadcrumbs lead the team to the children, enabling their safe return to their relieved mother. The following day, keeping a promise to her own daughter, Morgan takes her to work for a tour of the police station. Just as Morgan's daughter steps away to find the restroom, chaos erupts. A woman bursts into the station, disarms an officer, and takes control at gunpoint, announcing that bombs have been planted throughout the building. While her accomplice collects the officers' phones, Morgan seizes a brief moment to text her daughter, urging her to evacuate immediately. Just as Morgan's daughter is about to follow her mother's text warning and exit the building, a gunshot echoes from her mother's office, making her freeze in place. Inside, the armed assailants have the detectives at gunpoint, explaining their demands. They need evidence to exonerate their friend who's facing murder charges. They order some detectives to conduct the investigation outside the precinct. After running background checks, Lieutenant and Detective Eck identify the perpetrators as ex-military personnel. The soldiers make contact with the lieutenant, issuing their ultimatum: find proof of their friend's innocence, or the hostages die. Everyone accounted for? One demands. But they don't realize Morgan's daughter is still inside, hidden somewhere in the building. Outside the station, the lieutenant and detective team work frantically to review the case files. The original investigation centered on the murder of a high-ranking military officer found dead in his RV. All evidence had pointed to Logan, leading to his swift arrest. But now, his fellow soldiers are willing to risk everything to prove his innocence, while the investigation continues beyond the station walls. Inside, the armed ex-soldiers force the hostages to examine the caseboard again. While one detective reiterates that all evidence incriminates Logan, Morgan spots something crucial: an anomaly in the crime scene photos. She identifies a bloodstain with an unnaturally straight edge, indicating that someone had removed a document after the blood had already been spilled. See that edge? Too perfect to be natural. Something was lying there when Frank died, then disappeared before we arrived, Morgan explains. After getting clearance to communicate with the outside team, she directs Detective Eck to search the victim's RV for printed documents. Finding nothing physical, Eck takes initiative to check the victim's computer for recently accessed files. The search reveals a bombshell. The victim had been drafting a DD Form 458, a charge sheet used to court-martial a soldier. But before they can process this revelation, the male captor spots Morgan's daughter concealed in a corner. They quickly bring her out, adding her to the group of hostages. Outside, Detective Eck interviews the victim's daughter, who shares a crucial detail. Her father had broken their standing dinner plans just before his death. "He'd never missed our Monday dinners in years," she explains. This prompts Eck to ask Morgan to analyze the victim's phone location data from that particular day. Morgan's analysis of the phone records reveals a suspicious pattern. The victim had visited a known drug trafficking area before heading to a rehabilitation center. The lieutenant immediately orders a search for any service members connected to the victim with substance abuse issues. Inside the station, tension rises as the male captor grows increasingly agitated by the slow progress. As the male captor attempts to sow doubt about trusting the police, his partner works to keep him calm. In the chaos, an officer makes an ill-fated attempt to overpower them, resulting in a gunshot wound to his leg. When the captors deny Morgan's urgent request for medical help, she plays her trump card, revealing that the female captor is carrying Logan's child. This revelation triggers an explosive confrontation between the captors, with the male partner feeling betrayed. "You've been lying this whole time?" he accuses, though they quickly resolve their dispute. Seizing the moment, Morgan skillfully manipulates the situation, convincing them to release both the wounded officer and her daughter for medical attention. Following up on leads, Detective Eck investigates where the victim was last seen. He reports back to the lieutenant that security footage shows the victim with a blond, muscular man. Unfortunately, the video quality is too poor for positive identification. This revelation sparks heated words between the captors, with the male kidnapper growing increasingly frustrated at the investigation's apparent lack of progress. His female accomplice attempts to defuse the situation, but his agitation only intensifies. Meanwhile, Morgan's mind races as she assembles the puzzle pieces. Drawing from earlier findings, she highlights a crucial detail. The victim had purchased a tracking device shortly before his death, suggesting he was monitoring someone during his visit to the drug distribution area. Morgan theorizes that if Frank's killer was unaware of being tracked, they might still be carrying the device. Examining the victim's phone reveals a tracking application, which shows the tagged individual had been at the RV van when the murder occurred. Realizing the killer likely doesn't know about the tracker, Morgan uses the app to pinpoint their current whereabouts. Detective Eck moves in to apprehend the suspect. "You're under arrest for Frank Weber's murder." The male kidnapper, witnessing his plan unravel, suddenly attacks his female accomplice from behind. Seizing her weapon, he holds the hostages at gunpoint while demanding safe passage from the station. When he threatens to trigger an explosive device, Morgan calmly challenges his bluff. "That package didn't concern the K9 unit I observed earlier today," Morgan states confidently. The female kidnapper, regaining her composure, admits there never was a bomb. Taking advantage of the distraction, officers subdue the male captor and evacuate the hostages to safety. In the aftermath, Morgan embraces her daughter while Logan, now exonerated, walks free. Several days later, the lieutenant summons Morgan to discuss developments in her husband's disappearance. She explains that before vanishing, Morgan's husband had regular meetings with a mysterious individual. "I've identified him as Geo Confort," the lieutenant reveals. The name means nothing to Morgan, prompting the lieutenant to arrange a meeting with Confort. When they question him about his connection to Morgan's husband from 15 years ago, Confort initially claims memory loss. However, faced with Morgan's emotional appeal for help locating her spouse, he presents them with an offer. His terms? Secure his nephew's release from pending jail time for a minor offense. The lieutenant cautiously agrees, but only in exchange for valuable information about Morgan's husband's disappearance. The following day, she briefs Detective Eck on these new developments in the cold case. She requests his assistance in processing the nephew's release that evening. Later, as Morgan leaves work, she encounters Confort, who requests a lift. During the drive, he mentions his imminent departure from town, but promises to share crucial information about her husband upon his return. Meanwhile, Morgan continues her work, helping the department solve complex cases. The lieutenant announces a citywide police gala, instructing the entire department to attend in formal attire. "I expect everyone present and properly dressed for the occasion." But their anticipation quickly turns to tension when Detective Eck opens an anonymous email containing disturbing images. A hostage holding a sign reading, "2 hours to make your move." Detective Eck concludes they're dealing with someone who wants to turn this into an elaborate game. The team quickly identifies the hostage after running his information through their database. At the victim's residence, they discover a package waiting on the front steps. Inside, they find pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, which Morgan swiftly pieces together to reveal a map. The puzzle is incomplete. One crucial piece is missing. The team determines this missing section must indicate where the hostage is being held, somewhere in the mountains. Morgan and Detective Eck head into the mountainous terrain to search for clues. Their first discovery is another twisted game, a card puzzle that will reveal their next destination. Following the solution's directions, they press deeper into the mountains. Another puzzle awaits them, and once Morgan cracks it, they finally locate where the kidnapper is holding their victim. After securing the man's release, he recounts his ordeal. "I had just reached my apartment when someone ambushed me from behind. They made me participate in these twisted games." The victim describes his captor as silent, wearing an anime-style mask while observing their game. Morgan notes the kidnapper's choice of children's puzzles, suggesting they might have an obsession with childhood games. The investigation hits a wall at this point. That evening, Morgan meets Comfort, hoping for news about her husband's disappearance. Comfort reveals that in the days before vanishing, her husband had expressed concerns about his family's safety and mentioned working with a woman called Lila Flynn. "Lila Flynn, that's all I know about her," Comfort explains. Morgan has never heard this name before. Comfort promises to reach out with any additional information about Flynn. "Take my number. I'll contact you if I learn anything more about this Lila Flynn." The following day, the investigation takes another turn when 3 dolls appear at the station, bearing an ominous message. The fun has just begun. The team realizes they're dealing with a psychopath who's treating this like some twisted game. During their discussion, an officer unexpectedly reveals he knows the kidnapping victim. They both attend a grief support group for people who've lost family members. The lieutenant orders a thorough investigation of everyone in the therapy group and tasks Morgan with analyzing the significance of the 3 dolls. During interviews with group members, they learn about another participant who frequently discusses games and seems fixated on them. This member, they discover, lost his sister and harbors deep anger about never being able to play games with her again. The group facilitator mentions one member's unusual absence from their latest session. When detectives check this person's apartment, they find it completely ransacked. Upon killing the lights, they spot an eerie message glowing on the wall. "You can't tell in the dark." Morgan makes a crucial connection. The apartment belongs to an ASL interpreter who works with the deaf community. "Sign language requires light to be seen," she explains. "In complete darkness, deaf people lose their ability to communicate." She begins piecing together the puzzle's larger picture. "The dolls are using sign language," Morgan explains, examining the 3 figurines closely. Decoding their gestures reveals a hidden message, pointing to where the therapy member is being held captive. They find the woman trapped inside a locked container, but Morgan quickly deduces the combination by studying the artwork decorating the walls. Taking no chances, the lieutenant immediately assigns protective detail to each therapy group member. She then reminds everyone about tonight's police gala. As Morgan heads home to get ready, her phone buzzes with a message from Comfort, requesting an urgent meeting about her husband's disappearance. Elsewhere, Detective X sits down with an FBI contact who drops a bombshell. Lila Flynn, the woman connected to Morgan's husband's case, had been working undercover for the Bureau when she was killed 15 years ago. "She was one of our field agents," the contact explains, handing over a comprehensive file before departing. Just then, one of the officers from the therapy group is heading to the gala when his airbag suddenly deploys. Before he can react, a figure in an anime mask appears at his window. At the event venue, the other detectives realize someone's missing from their ranks and dispatch someone to check on him. During a dance, Detective Eck convinces Morgan to let him handle the meeting with Comfort regarding her husband's case. Later, they discover their missing colleague has been taken by the game-obsessed perpetrator, who's left more puzzles in the victim's vehicle. The trail of clues leads them to an abandoned property with a swimming pool. Horror strikes when they spot their fellow officers struggling in the water. "Quick, get him out!" they shout in unison, rushing to pull him to safety. The following day, Detective Eck confronts Comfort and after a heated exchange, finally gets him to agree to share crucial information about Morgan's husband. Meanwhile, Morgan is grocery shopping with her children when a stranger offers to help load their car. Back home, while unpacking, her son discovers a playing card with an ominous message. "You are the one, Morgan." At the precinct, the team's sketch of the game-obsessed perpetrator yields a surprising twist. Their suspect has been in rehabilitation for years, suggesting an imposter is at work. Morgan's blood runs cold as she realizes the helpful stranger at the grocery store must be their culprit. As the pieces start falling into place in her mind, her phone rings. It's Detective Eck, his voice urgent. "Morgan, we found him. Roman's alive."